Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to take you through the process of setting up the integration between Azure AD as the identity provider and AWS SSO. This setup will allow you to manage access and permissions related to all the AWS accounts in your organization through a single interface while managing your users and groups in Azure AD. Before starting, you'll need an AWS organization with preferably more than one account and a Microsoft Azure account so that you may set up Azure AD. So let's get started with the first step. Log on to your Azure portal, navigate to Azure Active Directory, Enterprise Applications, New Application, look for AWS Single Sign-On. You can give it whatever name you want. I'm going to leave the default and just create. To navigate to your AWS management console, choose AWS single sign-on. You can search it here if you can't see it. I can because I've recently visited it. In here, click on choose your identity source. By default it will be AWS SSO. Click change external identity provider, and at this point all we want to do is we want to download this metadata file. So I'm going to download it to, I'm just going to name it AWS SSO AAD metadata. That's it. So for step 3, we're back in the Azure portal. Inside Azure AD, go to Enterprise Applications, your previously created application. Click on Setup Single Sign-On. It can be any of these. We are going to basically use SAML. And in here, upload the metadata XML that we just downloaded from the AWS portal in step 2. Now there's a bunch of other details that you can provide for service provider initiated flows. I'm just going to provide the sign-on URL. It's not mandatory. It's only if you want to do the service provider initiated flow. But because I'm using the free plan in Azure, I'm going to basically do just that. But you can do it from the 365 portal as an app as well. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to download the metadata XML. I'm just going to call it the Azure AD AWS SSO metadata XML. This is the one we're going to upload over in AWS SSO to kind of complete the link, so to speak. So for step 4, we're back in the AWS portal on AWS SSO. And effectively what we're going to do now is we're going to upload the metadata file that we downloaded from Azure and upload it into here. Let's see, what's this one? Yeah. And that should effectively, this is essentially telling me that you've already got SSO set up because my account already did. It's not a problem, just accept and move on, but this essentially creates the link between Azure AD and AWS SSO. Step 5, what we'll do is within the Azure context, we'll basically assign which users have access to use this application. So we'll go into the app. We'll go to users and groups. Now you should actually assign groups and not users, just easier to manage. I've got a free tier account. I can't actually manage groups, so I'm going to just select users. they're just both me. And I'm going to say assign. So these users have access to the single sign-on, AWS single sign-on application within the Azure context. Step 6, almost coming to the end. Now we can basically create those users in Azure manually, in AWS manually, those that we have assigned in Azure, but the better option is to get them to sync across. So in the provisioning section, it's currently manual. What you're going to do is we're going to enable automatic provisioning, and we're going to copy the scheme URL and the access token. This is only available right now, so just copy it. Once you click close, you won't be able to see the access token again. So we're going to copy these, and you can see automatic is now enabled, it's scheme. And we're going to go over to AWS single sign-on in Azure, and we're going to provision user accounts. This takes a little while to load. And in here we're going to put the tenant URL, and the access token. We're going to test connection, and that looks good. Now the key here is, if you can see down here, we are choosing to only map across those. So save this first. But we're choosing to map across only those users that have been assigned to the SA, the AWS single sign-on app, and not all of the users. So which is why step 5 was crucial, because we added a couple of users to AWS single sign-on. And what we'll now do is we'll start provisioning. And this usually takes a minute or so. But what we'll do is it'll have those 2 users that we added to AWS single sign-on. It'll move them across to the AWS account. So it says 2 users have been synced across. You can see that this is going to run every 40 minutes from now on. You can stop it, you can do provisioning on demand, but we're going to let this be. And if we go to the SSO portal now in AWS, you'll see that 2 additional users have come, and they've got the username, which is essentially the username ported over from the Azure Active Directory. Step 7, it's kind of a mini step. If you don't do this, you will encounter an error when trying to log on. So go into Azure AD, into AWS single sign-on application, and basically set up single sign-on again. And you'll get a very dodgy MFA related error which makes no sense, but effectively it's got to do with mapping. And in here, modify the unique user ID to be user.mail, and save this, otherwise you will not be able to log in. So this is crucial. Cheers. So step 8, and you actually want to give access to AWS accounts to these users in Azure, otherwise they'll not be able to do anything. So you go to your SSO portal again, choose AWS accounts, let's say the root account for now, click assign user, let's go with this one, and this you ought to do with automation ideally, but I'm just going to do this manually for now, and I'm going to just use an admin level access for that. I'm going to say finish, and what's going to happen is that user that we just saw work with, that user will have access to this account. I might actually give access to one more account. I'll go and use log archive and basically give access to the same user, and we'll just make it admin again. This needs to be a lot more fine-grained and needs to be at a group level, but for the purpose of the demo, I'm just assigning directly to the user. So this should give access to 2 accounts to the user that is sitting in Azure AD. Finally, it's time to test the setup. So I'm going to do it through the service provider initiated flow, because I've got a free Azure account, but you can do it through 365 as well. But so I'm going to just put in the login URL, and as you can see, it will redirect me to the Microsoft login portal. Just going to log in, hopefully remember the password, and it takes me to the SSO portal. I've got access to 2 accounts with the admin role for both accounts, and I've got command line access for both of them, as well as access through the management console, and that takes me through to the account.